Halifax is a city rich in naval history. As part of Canada's 150th anniversary, we've been showcasing different parts of our country's story. I recently had the opportunity to travel to Halifax, where I spoke with Rear Admiral John Newton about our Navy, defending our coastlines, and how the Navy unites all of us.
To me, there is no frontiers on the ocean, so maritime security is real. It's an everyday business. And whether I'm doing search and rescue or sending ships to NATO reassurance to reassure our allies, it's the same story as was told in the Halifax explosion, War of 1812, or in the Battle of the Atlantic.
I want to ask you specifically about the base here and how you've called it the urban base and how unusual that is. Talk to me about sort of the dynamic of the people of Halifax and Dartmouth and sort of the blending of the Navy being here along with the people.
Well, it's a great point. I don't think you can go anywhere in Halifax without seeing the warships of the Navy and all the allied partners and submarines and ships that come here to visit because of the Navy's presence. You cannot move in this port without seeing sailors, warships, the military infrastructure. And then in the culture and society and recreation, you'll see the military side by side with the public.
Why did you want to join the Navy?
Well, first I'm a Haligonian.
Yes.
I'm the son of a Chief Petty Officer, Royal Canadian Navy, and
you were a geologist, though.
I'm a geologist,
yeah.
And I think because I grew up in one of the residential areas on the Bedford Basin, I knew about water. I knew I probably didn't want to be like my father, like every young kid, and so I struck off after university to the oil fields, and got crushed immediately by a recession in the first few years of employment. And when you're young and you really want to work, you want to pay off those debts, and you've got a good work ethic from a sailor father, you look to what you know, and I knew about Halifax and the Navy, and that's my former command. Yes, yeah. I've done the Northwest Passage
Patrol. And that was a
Patrol.
Dream of yours.
That was a dream.
Well, talk to me a little bit about why that specific location you wanted to sail through.
Well, first off, the military is about, you can live your dream. As a young leader coming up, whether you're a young officer or a petty officer, you can start shaping your dream of what kind of sailor you want to be, what kind of specialty you want to live, what kind of hobbies you have on the backside of your career. And so mine was always turned toward the north, and it was an experience from childhood that just sat in my brain for a long time. And I'll always see Canadian values well communicated by young sailors of the Royal Canadian Navy. They're the most beautiful ambassadors we have. I almost choked up there.
Did you? Do you get emotional?
Oh God, all the time. It's horrible. Oh gosh.
What makes you the most emotional when you're talking about what?
Yeah, well, just how like we're all young Canadians. I still see myself as a 25-year-old Canadian, and yeah, I know it's horrible.
No, it's not horrible. It's great.
And I think Canadian values are great. And then when I see it through a uniform, and how proud our sailors are in uniform, and it's good reason. They come from everywhere in our country, and then they get along on board a ship. And they don't regionalize their differences. They're actually, you can see that we're not a fractured country by ethnicity or gender or religion. It's a very universalizing environment on board the ship.
You must be proud.
Oh, I'm proud, yeah. Oh, I'm proud, yes. I'm proud to be a Haligonian, and I'm just proud that, that somehow we've built an institution over the last 107 years that allows that spirit to be generated in our sailors. We can train them, but we can't infuse them with being Canadian. So that comes from something bigger and better behind us, and I'm pretty proud of that.
What are the challenges of defending our borders at sea?
Well, that's a great question. It's an everyday challenge of making sure it's used for legitimate purposes. So there's a counter-drug element, there's a counter-illegal immigration element, there's a counter-terror element, but behind the scenes there's also just a general small S security domain of pollution, fisheries, illegal or illicit trade that we can contribute to. If I survey for submarines, I'm contributing to peaceful or civil regulatory control of the ocean. There's things that are carried in ships that hopefully the regulatory scheme keeps track of, whether you have a flammable agent in one and a toxic agent in another. And they do a pretty good job of keeping cargoes that are dangerous separated, but eventually you can have some pretty serious accidents at sea. So as long as there's nuclear power in this world and nuclear weapons, I think we always have to keep our guards up that we know what's going on inside those boxes.
What would you say is the biggest misconception about the Navy?
Well, that it doesn't have a job day to day is the biggest misconception. That first off, there is a standing job in maritime security. Nobody should take for granted that thousands and thousands of containers arriving every day is done without security behind the scenes. And the other thing is there's a role in capacity building and the legitimate use of the oceans, and we need all coastal states to live up to that governance. And so we can contribute what we have learned fighting for our fisheries to other countries. And we got a modest Canadian-made, homemade solution, made in Canada, young Canadians, very inspired, professional, voluntary, affordable, and very effective, and it's not a waste of money, and that's the biggest one.
We want to thank the Canadian Navy and specifically Rear Admiral John Newton for his time, his generous time. For more on our Canada 150 coverage, you can visit our website anytime at yourmorning.ca.